real creative here. Kind of impressed with myself.
Yeah. Nice job.
Okay, so
add it to your resume.
Yeah, right. We have no viewers now, but maybe they'll come back in a little bit. Yeah. Anyway, welcome to another video of Carbines and Cantrips, the book club here at Dirtbaggery Book Reviews. Tonight we have on the very bottom there, if you're watching on stream, Jesse James Fain. He is a dude. I realized last time when I introduced you, I said you were a prophetic writer instead of prolific. Maybe you are prophetic. I don't know, but that's my bad.
God, I hope not.
I realized I was like watching. I think, did I say prophetic? Whatever. Yeah, I meant prolific. But yeah, this is the third time you've been on the book club stream with me, and fourth overall because I had you on for like an author interview. And then in the middle there is the editor of this anthology, Wyrd Warfare. Chris, I don't know how to pronounce your last name, so if you want to throw that out there for everybody.
Denote. You had it right the first time.
Okay, cool. Sweet. Yeah, so this week's story was the third short story in this anthology. It's called Archangel, and the author's name is Frederick. Chris, can you help me out with his next two names?
Frederick Gero Heimbach.
Yep, that's it. I really like this one. But I guess before we go into that, it's Monday, so how's everybody's weekend?
Pretty chill.
Yeah.
Pretty low key, just the way I like it.
Sweet.
Yeah, we did the standard Memorial Day cookout. Had friends and some family over. It's release day for me. My official editing debut is out today. It came from the Trailer Park Double Wide, so that was cool too. That was a cool way to start the day.
Nice, man. Is that now? Is that like the whole anthology you edited, or you like participated in it, or?
So I got to be assistant editor with the guy that runs Three Ravens Publishing, William Joseph Roberts. So he picked the stories. I wrote a story for it, and then we both picked over all the stories that were submitted that he had selected and did edits and left notes for the author and everything like that. So it's kind of a tag team effort to be my intro into the game. And it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed being on the other side of it as far as that was concerned. So
nice, man. So as like the assistant, like, are you kind of like in a training position? Like, how do you become an editor?
Yeah. You decide somebody gives you a shot to be one. I've been blessed to make friends, and so like I'm friends with the guys over at Bayonet Books and the friends with everybody at Three Ravens and. Working my way on a Raconteur will, I hopefully meet everybody at LibertyCon and get to know them better. But and you say, hey, I want to give a crack at editing, and somebody, either tells you to F off or they say okay. And once they say okay, you do your best. You try to leave everybody good constructive notes, and then the authors either tell you F off or they tell you okay.
Yeah.
So.
Nice, man.
Well,
go ahead.
I was going to say, in our case, it was, we decided at Raconteur that 24 and 24 anthologies wasn't enough. So we decided to do 25 here in 2025. So that means we need editors. And that led to putting this book together. Let's see, I'd done some assistant editorial work on the big ones, which was a World War II alt history one that Raconteur did. Also giant stomping robots, and then had to come in and help out towards the end of giant squeeing robots because the editor for that, T.C. Ross, was unfortunately hospitalized, and she's in recovery now, thank goodness, but needed someone to step in and just put some finishing touches on things, write the intro, that sort of dealio. So, three shots at the assistant editor gig, and then started out with one Wyrd Warfare anthology, which then sort of morphed into two. I kind of say it was like going from an LP to a double LP concept album overnight. But unfortunately, the stories, as I hope you all see, really carried the weight, and I think we got two rock solid books out of it. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, how much? I've never actually spoke to an editor before. Like, how much like what goes into your part of the job as far as these stories? Like, are you changing a bunch when these stories come across your desk, or?
What I did for these was, I'd send comments back for the authors, right, on a few of them, and just say, hey, I recommend you change this. Most stuff that y'all probably think of as copy editors. So at Raconteur, we have a lead editor. There's usually an assistant, and then one or two copy editors as well. So that's just fixing the usual things, grammar, punctuation, spelling, all that sort of good stuff. And we also have folks that do layout and, of course, the artwork. So it's a real team effort, team production. Now, if you're asking how I edit, I mean, everybody's pretty different. They all got their own techniques. I look at the book kind of like a producer looks at an album. So it wasn't just, hey, let me just grab the 10 best stories out of the whole submitted field, and we got close to 60 for this one. It was pretty nuts, but it was great. It was okay. What do I want the whole book kind of cohesively to be, right? It's not just like what stories, what order are they going to go in?
Mm-hmm.
How are we going to do like?
Oh, come on! No, come on, dude. Are you back?
You were the one that was gone. We were in the
Oh.
same room together.
Oh, I left.
Oh,
No, Chris was here. Bruce, you were out.
yeah, you were.
Oh my gosh, dude.
Did you get any?
I feel like this is an appropriate story for tonight with how Streamlabs is acting.
Oh, dude, you ain't kidding. I mean, so it's funny because what I was just talking about was it wasn't just picking the stories; it was what order are they going to go in, and because it's like, what do I want? Because it could be 10 stories in a row like MSR Merlin, and just not just keep punching your teeth in like the whole time, curb stomp you a little bit. But I don't know how much fun that would be for the reader. Probably be exhausting. So it was like we need to do this, some peaks and valleys and dynamics and highs and lows and all that kind of good stuff. Besides, that way, and also just they're all so freaking different. But it was like if you're gonna do a warfare anthology like this, it was like there ought to be at least one good Navy story in there. Hit all sort of the different forces, different domains, stuff like that. Domain that's a big DoD buzzword now. So I'm retired 06. If I slip in the buzzwords, just hit me upside the head. All right, stop me from doing it. But I'm also old, so I also like the idea of having a good Cold War story in there or two.
Yeah. How did this one strike you when you first read it?
Dude, it blew me away.
Yeah,
I'm just dead serious. It was so different from anything else that I'd gotten to that point, and it was just so well put together. And frankly, it was terrifying. I mean, I'll be honest. This was the one story in all the ones that I got that actually bothered me so much for days afterwards. I think I even had a nightmare one night about it. I was, somebody asked me to describe it to him before, and I said, well, there's the obvious things: Hunt for Red October, a little bit of Crimson Tide, maybe. And I was like, and imagine Event Horizon if that had been a finished product. And that's kind of the vibe you get off of this story.
Yeah.
Because that's one of the things that popped into my head reading it was it reminded me a bit of Event Horizon, in a good way.
Yeah.
So, and definitely some little shades, I think, of 40K here and there, just, by virtue of how it's put together and the type of story it is.
Yeah.
I don't want to spoil it for nobody, but I thought that, it was just so freaking different. And after, opening with MSR Merlin, which is pretty intense action-wise, and then the last one, which is kind of, pretty doggone horrific. And sometimes this book does lean towards horror a bit, so it's like really trying to balance some of that out. But it was like, okay, we can do this in a way that's also scary, maybe not as visceral all the time, and we'll see what happens. But it's a unique perspective. I mean, how often do you get something like this from in this story, alternate universe, Russian, not necessarily Soviet point of view?
Yeah. You got any thoughts, Jesse?
No, I mean, I agree. The story, if I was going to describe it to someone, the word I would use would be wild. This was a wild
Yeah.
story. I definitely agree on the event horizon and 40K, kind of like if as a comparison.
Yeah.
Um, I liked this. Chris was talking about, and he's right. Whenever you do an antho or something like that, when you're editing something like that, it's that same thing as like a good plot and a good story in and of itself has to kind of ebb and flow and always build. But you don't want the same emotional spectrum. You don't want the emotional spectrum set on the same thing all the time. And so this story does a great job of we have like kind of two gunfight stories that work in different fashions. The worlds work in two different fashions, and then we get thrown into this much more spiritual warfare,
Mm-hmm.
literally. And I thought that was a very good choice. So props to you, Chris. This was the spot to put it. That it was a
Thank you.
good power
Yeah.
cleanser, good wild story, and I really enjoyed this one. It walked the line really well when you do a story like this. Anytime you do a point of view character that suffers from issues with reality,
Mm-hmm.
you take the risk when you're doing that story of throwing your reader into issues with reality too. So you need the reader to know where you are to have a base in the story, even when your point of view character doesn't. And I think that this story was well written in that. I didn't lose. I didn't get confused reading this, even when the captain was confused.
Yeah.
Good. That's a credit to Fred who wrote it. Because he nailed the things like he did. I was a little bit concerned, like the points where it's obvious that he's snapping back to the present time or whatnot, or that there's skipped time in there. And, I was wondering at first is how was that going to come across? If people were going to buy it or not.
Mm-hmm.
And dude, it works, and it works so well. And you're right about that too. It's a bit more of a cerebral story. And what's great about doing something in submarines, and I mean, if you've ever read or seen Ice Station Zebra or Run Silent, Run Deep, or Das Boot, that sense of paranoia, right, from being in a really tight and close space like that.
Yeah.
And there's not a lot of margin for error. I mean, something substantially breaks on one of those things, and you're in a heap of trouble. You're in a real heap of trouble. There's something, even taking out the ones that were sunk by enemy action, there was something I think over 50 U.S. submarines lost during World War II. Many of those wrecks are still missing, or their ultimate status is unknown. But I think the bubbleheads say that they're still on patrol. It's a tradition that goes with that. But so that sense of paranoia and foreboding just keeps building throughout the whole thing. And the way that he handled, I mean, I'm no expert on Orthodox theology. I mean, I'm Roman Catholic. I don't, you know what I mean? So I like seeing religion treated seriously in works of fiction, horror, science fiction, and fantasy, because I often don't think it does. It's like I mean, I think the death of a religion has been prematurely announced more than once, especially in the last century. But when it's handled really well, it can be really very impactful. And I think that's certainly played a big part in it, because I mean, Russian and Eastern Orthodox Eastern Church iconography and the artwork and all that, it's so striking.
Yeah.
I mean, and so now you got that imagery in your mind's eye too, because it really adds to that, man. And to just do that after, the harshness of them first two stories, and even in the second one where the Filipino guerrillas Catholicism certainly plays into that as well. It goes beyond folklore, and it's it does. So it was really neat when I saw that. I was like, I've never read anything quite like that. And then the artwork for it. The second I saw that, it was. I mean, that's one thing I like about being an editor is I get to see all the artwork before everybody else does. The audience wise, so I see what they're all going to look like. And oh, dude, as soon as I saw those pictures, that's a credit to Sanderson and Sarah Clitheroe. Those are our artists at Raconteur. It was like, oh, dude, this is gonna kill.
Yeah.
You know, I knew it. I knew it was gonna do the job.
Yeah. When I was reading this, it reminded me a lot of Orders of Magnitude by Yuval Cordove, which that's in outer space. That's on the moon, but very similar, like very strong. It was Catholic versus Orthodox, but super strong religious and spiritual vibes, treated seriously, like very seriously. I don't know. It reminded me a lot. I even actually like tagged Yuval in the stream post on X. It's like, you should read this because I think you would really like it, because it's very. I don't know if you guys have read Orders of Magnitude, but it reminded me a lot of that.
No, but I want to now. And interestingly enough, I'm supposed to be on a round table with Yuval at some point in the near future. Nice. So that'll be a nice conversation, and hopefully then we can talk about both of them.
Yeah,
that'd be a neat follow up to this. But it's like I said, man. That story. I'm pretty sure I had a nightmare that night about it, and I've got. I mean, I woke up saying the St. Michael prayer. You know what I mean? Because that's how scared I was. It really messed me up good. So I was like, okay, that's going in there, man. That one's going in for sure.
Yeah, it had this like I don't know what kind of gave me anxiety. It has like this frantic, like disjointed pace where it was like I felt like I was getting jerked around and it was moving like fast and then stopping and moving fast. It was very, but it wasn't like it did make me slow down when I read it, like the snapping back and forth. Like I did slow down. I was like, okay, what's happening? But I didn't get confused. I just had to slow down and really understand what was going on in the scene, which I liked. And so I read it once, and then today I was kind of just going back through and making sure, like, okay, I understood, like, this is what happened here and here. But I liked that it slowed me down. And I also really liked how he like mixed this scene from like being in the real, like right in the present. So like the scene where he's about to drink the holy water and it gets knocked out of his hand, and then he like falls down into it and he's like weeping or whatever. He's like touching the holy water, and then it switches to blood, and it like takes you instantly back to that. And then the other time when he's trying to grab the by the way, we do spoilers on here. Jesse usually has a spoiler alert thing, just 'cause it's hard to talk about the book without spoiling it. Spoiler alert, but yeah,
your warning issues.
I got to get me one of those.
Yeah, and then when he grabs the idol that's protecting like the key, and it like morphs into like the memory of his brother in the field, like there was such a good like blending of his memory with the present.
Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of props, if you will, to work within that, because, like I said, icons is a huge part of liturgical practice in the Orthodox, and many of the Catholicism and other other elements like sorry, man, I'm tired.
Right.
Yeah, but you know what I'm saying. Yeah, icons are important. They give you a lot of things to work with. There, let's go with that.
Yeah, plus it just puts out a cool, incense punk vibe.
Yeah, that's right. I've been hearing about that, and it's something that I want to dig a little bit more into.
Yeah. What were you going to say, Jesse?
Well, I think that the icons, it's funny how things pair up in like a really well-written story. So like a big part of the horror here, at least what I think is the most disturbing, is that we have a character who his intentions are 100% pure, but he's literally fighting with something that has taken over part of himself.
Yeah.
And he's losing control of himself. And the icons provide a anchor that it's like, and the final icon, the statue that brings back the memory of his brother, like we talked about, that final icon is undeniable. So while he's lost reality so many times under the influence of everything that's going on, we now have this final icon, and this final icon allows him to, at the crucial moment, stay anchored long enough to make a change.
Yeah.
And I think that's really cool.
I think so too. It allows him to focus back in on things as well, because it's a reminder of a higher, better reality than the one that he's faced with right now. You know what I mean? And that's the thing is, there's elements of illusion that go into this too, because you think about it, I mean, the way the demonic power is represented in this is primarily not entirely through illusion, but illusion is a big part of it, right? Mm-hmm. Illusion and overcoming someone's own free will, or tapping into the corruption that they've already got present to begin with. I mean, the tensions that were in Russian society too, between the secular side of it, the religious aspect of it too. I mean, you go all the way back and you study the roots of the Russian Revolution, both the attempt in 2005 and then in 1917, and then everything that sort of followed on through the history of communism. It's really something else. My undergrad was in Russian history at Russian language minor at school. Spent a month there back in 1998, so a long while ago.
Oh wow.
Yeah, Moscow and St. Petersburg, and it was just really sort of an eye-opening thing. It gives you a whole new insight. And I've visited other parts of Eastern Europe too, Estonia, Latvia, places that were part of the Soviet Union. No love lost, I can tell you that. Even in Finland as well. And it's really interesting because when you see that sort of stuff in real life, the connection then that you can make with a work like this, and you just see how well it was done. I think that helps. Just adds to the story and certainly adds to the book, because it's like, I'm glad you liked it, because none of the other ones will like it. So,
well, that brings me to a question for you, Chris. Bruce and I have been talking about this kind of every time we've met for these, that the history connections in all of these are really good. Like the connection to some kind of particular conflict. Were all your submissions like that, or did you select for that? Was that one of the things that you saw that you really liked and wanted to kind of put into this?
I tried to balance it. So across the two books, not every story is based on a real world conflict. But I wanted to balance it somewhat, because it's like, if I wanted to do just an all World War II one, I actually could have. We had enough stories to do that. But we also had to go from what we had as a field, which was really, obviously World War II well represented, no shock. GWAT in present day was very well represented, which I don't think I was expecting that when we first put the open call out, but I was really happy it did, because I love the results. And then, there was some good Cold War ones. I deliberately did want something from that period in there, because I think when it comes to like weird fiction, horror, sci-fi, it's not represented enough. I mean, what pops into my head is Charlie Strauss, A Colder War. If you've ever read that novella, you can get it for free online. It's posted on there. And just that was sort of like the one that was in my head of, if there was going to be a good Cold War story, I hope it's something that sort of brings that back. That's a good one to check out. So give that a look-see. I think you guys will like that one. And also, I was a career intel guy too, so anything that touches on that side of the house, I'm gonna have a little bias for it. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie.
Fair.
Dude, I couldn't. When he kept having the flashbacks to Oleg, all I could think about was Walk Hard, where he's like, "This is the worst case of being cut in half I've ever seen." But it turns out that combine accidents make pretty good guardian angels. I couldn't tell though. At first, I also kind of liked it. Like, at first, I thought Oleg was like a chink in his armor, where it was kind of his feelings and his trauma around the event kind of allowed the demon in. But then at the end, like that memory pushed the demon back and allowed him to bring the sub up to the surface.
Right, and part of that was him starting to confront the truth of what had happened, and his own guilt for it and all that other sort of thing. So, there's a lot in here on really what, on sin, on responsibility, on moral choices and all that, to say nothing of the moral choice of, hey, we're going to imprison angelic beings and stick them in nuclear reactors and ICBMs, because that sounds like a great freaking idea, for the sole
But
purpose.
It sounds human.
Yeah.
That's the thing, is like, that's what was so awesome about it, is like, this is one of the worst ideas I've ever heard, and we would totally do some stupid shit like this.
Yeah.
Damn right. Absolutely damn right. In the case of, till the sun shines. That's, the supernatural world intruding in on the natural world, right? You know what I mean? They're taking advantage of it. They're predators, they're parasites. They're sitting there going, hey, feeding time, like sharks to chummed waters. In this case, it's like we're gonna try and become masters of the supernatural domain, and see how that works out for us. And yeah, great idea there. Way to go, Chief.
Cave to the Cross Apologetics says all it requires is 0 mistakes or accidents. True.
Oh, in that case, we're fine. Yeah,
we're fine.
Okay. I mean, nobody pencil whips inspections or checklists. That never happens.
Yeah, on that topic of like human nature, I kind of like two things that kind of stood out to me that kind of touch on how messed up we can be in the story was the lengths that they go to, or the idea of needing to be protected from your own weapons. Like what does that say about our nature? And then also, what is it, Dimitri the Simple, how he got in prison for suggesting that maybe demonic warheads aren't God's will. Yeah, they're just like, yeah, shoot that guy.
Which is a very Russian thing to do too. Let's be perfectly honest. But yeah, I mean, well, you think about it. I mean, I didn't want to say the A word, allegory, or anything like that. I'm not going to speak for Fred, whether this was on his mind or not. But it's a great way to get at sort of the paradox and the risks and everything of nuclear weapons. You know what I mean? To talk about it without beating you over the head with it, right? I mean, like you said, you need to be protected from your own weapons. And I'm sitting here going, oh yeah, you mean like nukes? Thinking of the silos, the ICBMs, the boomer subs, the bombers, all that sort of stuff. Now I'm not so old that I grew up in when SAC, Strategic Air Command, was still a thing, or at least during my military service. That predates me by just a few years, but not by much. Anyway.
Oh man, yeah. Oh, this is something I didn't know. Like I could kind of tell just from like the way the word Archangel, it looked like Archangel, so I copy and pasted it. I put it into Grok to ask like what it was, and it said comes from the Russian word Archangel, and is derived from the nearby Mikhailo Archangelsk monastery, dedicated to the Archangel Michael. According to legend, the Archangel Michael defeated the devil near the site where the city now stands, and the city's name reflects this with its coat of arms depicting Michael vanquishing the devil, which I don't know if that's true. Sometimes Grok doesn't get things right, but if it is, that's pretty cool little lore.
Sure. I mean, there's the in Western European religious tradition, there's the St. Michael's sword, which is a line of 7 churches that are across the continent, sort of almost in this perfectly straight line diagonal line from each other. And the story behind that is the first of the 7 starts where the devil impacted the earth and he skidded across the other 7 when he was cast out. The other 6, I mean. Huh. So, I mean, it's that kind of cosmic scale, something that we just, beyond our comprehension, sort of thing, trying to translate, like the line in the story that says, moral agencies were at war. Mm-hmm. It's like trying to translate something that is in the pure intellectual, spiritual, conceptual realm into something that, you and I can perceive, read or touch, watch, and, something that would probably burn, if you're not getting the ending scene from Raiders of the Lost Ark with that, melting people's eyeballs out and stuff, it's you're probably burning the brain out like 40K style or something.
Yeah, I really like the containment hatch embossment of Jesus, and like first starts off with the holy water getting put on it, and then he's like, looks like he's sweating from restraining the demonic energy inside. And then, I don't know, it kind of gave me like this sense of like urgency as it's like cracking. And then like somehow dudes got trapped inside and they're like banging on the inside to be let out. It just felt like it was, urgent, I guess, maybe kind of trying to like speed up the pace with this idea that like the barriers or whatever, the gate is failing and the end is coming close.
Yeah, like I said, just top to bottom, start to finish. It was like that was an easy decision to put it in the book. That was one of the easiest ever, and there were some tough ones. I mean, like I said, we had like 57, 58 submissions, and it was really tough, really, really tough at times. And sometimes it really came down to, does this really fit? Does this read well coming after this other story and coming before this other one? And I'm sure, Jesse, you've made the same kind of decisions now, or you've had to, and it can be painful. You feel bad about it when you leave something out that you really love just because something edged it out, because not better written, but just because it works in the book better.
Mm-hmm.
The story that is in the antho that came out today, I had already submitted for a previous antho, and I got to finally get behind the scenes. Like, I'm the editor now, you know what I mean? So like, and William Joseph Roberts, he's talking to me and he's like, "Hey Jess, like, do you have a story you want to throw in?" And I was like, "Well, I submitted one for last trailer park, and it didn't get in. But I don't know what you guys felt about that." And so there was a file, and I got to actually go into the file, and the file had notes for every story that had been submitted. And it was like, "This was a great read, fun story." And that was all it said. But it still didn't get selected. And so that's what really told me is a lot of editors, they like to let people down easy. They like to look at people and be like, "Hey man, like, it just didn't fit. Like, it's a great story, really loved it. It just didn't work." And you hear that enough and you think like, "Oh, it was kind of them to say that, but they're just trying to reject me politely." But then I got to see on the back end, like, no, really, sometimes you're like, "Oh man, this is a great story." And it's like, "Oh, but I already have 3 other alligator stories, and so I can't take this alligator story because no matter how good it is."
Yeah, it's funny because with the submissions we got, the Philippines came up a bunch. For World War II and what have you. That, and like we mentioned before, they got the most messed up folklore I think I've ever seen. I mean,
Yeah.
Wow. But it was just one of them things. It's like now you're like, okay, they're both great. Damn it, now what do I do? So the good news for this was the pop-up opportunity to do the second book. I'm telling you, I still had enough stories left over for about half of the third. So I'm hoping some of those folks will resubmit because I'd say it's pretty much a given. We'll do a third one next year.
Yeah. Gotta get to typing.
Hey, that's right. I was going to say, guys, sharpen your pens. We do homework posts at Raconteur when we do our open call. So go to the Substack and pay attention to the homework post. I put some good effort into the one that I did for the Weird War books, because there were certain beats and influences that I hope that people would kind of, hit upon. I mean, like I said, I'm of an age, I remember the old heavy metal cartoon movie from 1981 and Stephen King's amazing, Stephen King, and also Steven Spielberg's amazing stories and old comic books. People forget sometimes Tales from the Crypt was a comic book before it was a TV show. There was one episode that really stuck out to me, and it was a World War I episode that had Kirk Douglas and one of his younger sons. There was no supernatural horror element whatsoever. They just let the backdrop speak for itself because it's World War I. So we went in, we dug in. We try to give would-be authors and readers some hints. Not a test code, not an answer key, but just a hey, maybe put this in mind, or do a little bit of digging around this if you're looking for something to do and to see what comes in. So yeah, check the Substack, and as soon as we get the 2026 schedule finalized and God spares, Wyrd Warfare 3 will be on it, and we'll see what happens.
Heck
Awesome.
yeah. Yeah, I need to start reading some more. I've never been like a big short fiction guy, probably until like the last. I mean, I had to read like in school and stuff, obviously read short stories, but like I think audiobooks kind of got me. Well, okay, Conan and like H.P. Lovecraft. Okay, read those for sure, but like audio, like doing like novellas, like Lost Planet Homicide from Larry Correia. I think that's like the first short audio that I got into. But yeah, after like reading this, If these are just like way more my style than like what you would like come across in school, I think I'm definitely gonna have to put more energy into reading short stories for sure. This is a lot of fun. Yeah. So, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I think they make a good palate cleanser, and like, you know, you find the series that you fall in love with, and you spend $15 with a set of characters, and at least if you're a reader like I am, and it's like, okay, cool, this world is done. There is no more. I've read every Jim Butcher story that's out, or whatever. You know what I mean? Like I've covered all this. Now what do I do with my life? And if you don't know yet, and you don't know what kind of mood you're in, because for me, I'm a mood reader. I read 800 different genres. I've got to be in the mood for cyberpunk to read it or whatever. Then the short stories are a wonderful way to be like, oh, okay, cool. I really dug that. Maybe my next novel should be urban fantasy. My next novel should be, you know, Wyrd Warfare or some other small Weird West or some other small genre. I think it's really cool for that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. Do jump in between genres, but also, like length between novels, novellas, and short stories. Like doing the short stories is great. Like I'll literally, my son will be like sleeping on my chest, and I'll just like pop my phone open and knock out a short story while he's napping, and that's awesome. I like being able to get a full story knocked out without having to devote like a week of my life to consuming that story. So I'm very drawn to that aspect of short fiction. But as to the story, something else I really like that really popped out to me that I thought was cool was like when the sub starts getting pinged and it's evident that there's another ship coming. It's like Beelzebub freaks out and he's like, oh crap, I got to do something crazy. And everyone who's like been going nuts and hallucinating and being psychotic like snaps out of it, and they go to their battle stations, and the sub comes back to its purpose and like, we got to launch these missiles now. And they're trying to do it before, like, obviously, I don't remember how to say that. The captain gets control of the helm and does it, and then Saint Michael comes down and just f's up Beelzebub, which was so cool. How that lore about how they like use the silver to like capture Beelzebub, and the fact that they have like Saint Michael in a box and he shoots out, beams of like
holy beams,
of like crucifixes and his swords and whatnot. Dude, that was so cool. And then the bishop in the battle armor coming down. Oh my goodness.
You really could explain that.
Yeah.
That was pretty badass, man. And like I said, it's so cool because like if you dig into history in Eastern Europe, a lot of churchmen back then weren't the shy retiring type when it came to physical combat as well either. And you got plenty of instances in it of it as well. So it's really cool, and it's certainly not beyond the pale. So it was pretty awesome.
What did you guys think of the closing line? Because he's like the infantryman or whatever comes down last and starts like popping the crew, and he goes to shoot the captain, and the captain has the idol in front of him, and it basically is like going wherever the dude's bullet or barrel goes. And then like I think that last line is like nobody wants to hurt a child or something like that. I didn't really know like how to take that. As the last, I mean, it sounded cool, it felt cool, but I didn't really. What did you guys think of that line?
I think it shows, at least for me, the way I took it is like that was, what was his brother's name? Oleg?
Yeah, the little brother.
That was Oleg one more time. Like one last, it was showing, and I think it was showing the difference in the captain and the captain's maybe like, I don't want to call it spirit, but the captain's intentions versus everyone else that had been kind of in charge and possessed, including the other priest. Mm-hmm. Because there was the whole thing with like pissing in the holy water. And so my question that I still haven't figured out, and I even going back and kind of looking at it again, who actually knocks the holy water out of their hands? Because it's intended, I think, to feel like that's the demon doing that. But if the holy water's tainted and is actually making things worse, was that Oleg? Or was it the demon? I still don't know, because the holy water was supposed to be tainted.
Yeah, that was an open question I had too. I was like, who? Like, I kind of assumed maybe it was just the the demon, but now that you kind of say that, that does make sense. Was it Oleg? It's kind of an ambiguous, open-ended question. I like that.
Well,
Yeah,
one of the things that's traditionally held to be behind demonic possession is it happens as a result of cooperation. Between the victim and and evil. In other words, there's intention behind it and a deliberate choice involved, or at least an openness that's involved to that as well. And so that's one of the things too that I liked about it too, because I don't even think it's 100% really certain, and you could take it multiple ways on there also. So, but I also think it kind of points back to the nature of spiritual warfare, and that it's a constant, non-stop thing. It's not a one and done, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of that, like I feel like Fred, he did a good job of kind of being kind of subtle with how he showed that the captain was being. Obviously, there's the quick. Okay, I woke up and time has passed, but like beyond that, like the first thing I kind of noticed that like besides that, the time jumps, that something was like going on with the captain was because he thought they were going to Murmansk, and then like they got new orders to return to Murmansk, and he was like, I told the radio guy, okay, you're relieved to get out of here. Don't go to Murmansk. Try to shake off the aerial drone. I don't know if it's drone at this point, but like whoever's in the air, surveilling them, and then take us deeper. So it seemed like that was like the opposite of what he was just saying before the last like jump. So that was like a good little hint as to the demon influencing him, but it wasn't like overt.
Yeah. Yeah, and I appreciate that about the story. I appreciate that it's left up to interpretation a little bit. That there's you're trying to that it makes a story that has spiritual conflicts in a anthology and a genre where you expect physical conflict more interesting, because you are in always trying to put the pieces together. And it made the story not feel slow. It made the story not feel predictable. Even when you know it's the demonic influence, you're still trying to figure out what everybody's game is and who's doing what and how it all ties together.
Yeah, I think the story's kind of the antithesis of slow and predictable.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we got started a little late, so we're almost out of at the end point time wise. But yeah, dude, that was a great story. Is there anything else you guys want to add? I mean, I'll run a little bit late if if you guys got more you want to talk about.
And I think we've covered it pretty well. I'm really happy, and thanks for having us on. I hope you guys enjoy the rest of the book too, and
Absolutely.
the other one.
Absolutely.
And hey, like I said, just keep your eyes out. I really hope and think we will be doing a third one, and we'll see how it goes.
Heck yeah. Yeah, I'm definitely going to be picking up that second one and smashing through that, because these are so fun to read. And like just quick, like I said, my kid's taking a nap, easy to knock out a short story. But yeah, guys.
Yeah,
go ahead, sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, I'm amped for the next story. I love the artwork. I can already get a feel for where this one is going, and I cheated and I read that first page, and it looks like we're diving into like modern soldiers in the evil Romanian vampire castle. We're doing the G Water, or later meets Count Dracula, and I'm excited. I'm ready for this one. That and the Vampire Dames little warning poster. Watch out for the vampire girls was quite entertaining to me.
I did see that art. That was a cool little poster.
Oh, dude, this is a great one. There are a lot of acronyms in it, but I think you guys can handle it. I have faith and confidence. And there are parts of it, though, that is as messed up as it is, it just made me laugh right out loud, too. So it is definitely a story for the rip-its and tap out and era veteran that I think many of us are, a bit reminiscent of.
Yeah, I'm excited. I did not jump ahead to see what it was. I just saw that picture, but yeah, that sounds rad. I'm excited for that. If I think most people in the chat are at least, I don't know, most of them I think I've already read this, but if you're watching this video afterwards, definitely go pick up this anthology. And all the stories so far have been killer. the authors and Chris did a great job with this one. So, yeah, thanks for coming on, man. That was I really appreciate you coming and talking about the Antho and the story.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Alrighty, guys. Well, I'll see you guys. Jesse, I'll see you next week, and Chris, I'll see you maybe another time. Oh my goodness. Sorry, I switched over scenes too early. I'm such a noob at this.
It's all good, guys. Hey, thanks. Yeah. All right, and thanks for letting me talk a bit too. I'm sorry if I talk too much, but pretty excited about this one. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah,
I just know for the third one, I'm gonna have to put up or shut up and actually write something to fit. And I've got an idea. We'll see how it works. But so originally there was another open call we had slotted after Wyrd Warfare, but the editor for that, Mike Burke, who did Pogue 1 also, which was a lot of fun. Pogue 1 was a lot of fun. I mean, they're...
Oh, God. I don't know what's going on. I do know. Sorry. Go ahead. What Pogue 1?
Oh, yeah, I was going to say no. I mean, so he didn't get enough stories that he thought were good enough to do the book that we were going to do, which was Space Malfeasance. It was going to basically be a book about shitbags. The guys that have made E5 3 times, you know what I mean? That sort of thing. And the blotter. Just basically it's the blotter, the roster that's on the blotter the next morning. And being a former squadron commander myself, who's gotten the 2 a.m. phone calls from the first sergeant. It was just one of those, oh no. But we had I didn't anticipate that was going to happen, but I was really keen on the idea of maybe getting a second book out of this. Maybe we do it at the end of the year or something. So I picked out the 10 for that one, and I even put them in order. And so when we were debating what to do, it was like we need to pivot. It was like, well, hey, guess what?
Hey, by the way,
it's funny you should mention that. So that's how we ended up doing 2 back to back. And like I said, I think, dude, they really complement each other. There's a gnarly Vietnam story in the second book that I was surprised I didn't get more Vietnam submissions, to be honest with you. But it's killer. I think it anchors the second one. I mean, it's just when you read that, you gotta. Damn, that's all I can say. So I mean, I'm still chuckling about it. That's how much fun these were to put together, man. I'm just glad to see them do well and that people are enjoying them. It feels great.
Yeah, I'm definitely enjoying it, and I'm excited to see you guys keep putting out more stuff. Yeah, really.
You too,
I definitely don't think you talk too much. I appreciate all the input. That's why we had you on. It was good insight.
And it's such a oddball story too. It needs context, I think, for people, just because I could see some folks reading that going, "What the hell is?" So, but anyway, Jesse, good luck. With the new one that's out too. I have to go check it out. And congrats. Congrats, and I hope to see you do something for the third one too, man. I mean, that's why I mentioned it. It's like, just come on out. Let's do it. Rising tide lifts all boats, et cetera, or like we call them in the Air Force, BOATs, to take off the Navy guys.
Yeah, when I saw Space Malfeasance wasn't going to happen, and it's like, hey, we're going to do second Wyrd Warfare instead. I was like, are they going to open calls again? Because I literally just got too busy. I'm having to make the transition from a short fiction author to a novel author. So I had to cut all that time out. It's like I gotta I gotta have something with just my name on it. I gotta make it happen. And so I was like, okay, I'm not gonna submit to Wyrd Warfare. I'm gonna have to do something else instead. I'm gonna have to work on this instead. And then when it was like, hey guys, turns out not gonna be able to do this book. Gotta do this. We're gonna do the second one of this instead. And I was like, please say you're gonna open up submissions. And it was like, oh no, we already got stories. Crap.
But like I said, the good news is they've done well enough that it's pretty much a given. We're going to do a third one.
3. Okay, yeah. I can be ready for next year. I can
In
do
fact, and if that knocks it out of the park, we could keep going with it. I mean, you know, I might hand it off at some point because it's like, hey, I do got my own writing I want to get to too, and I've done some shorts and I've got some ideas on doing some longer pieces also. But you know, it's you know, I'm definitely in for doing one more at least. So the opportunity is going to be there. This did too well. These have both done too well so far in a short period of time to just leave money on the table.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, people nailed it so well. Like I said, I had half of a third book. I really did. You know, and it was just the schedule we got, man. I mean, it's tight. We're putting a book out every 2 weeks right now. I can pretty much guarantee you we're not going to do that again next year. We don't have enough people, and it's kicking our ass. And we've proven our point. So, you know, I don't think we need to punish ourselves anymore.
I mean, if more people look, I'm just saying, if more people's the problem, I'll just say the word.
Dude, in that case, yeah. I mean, make sure, you know, Liberty Con's going to be a good opportunity for you to talk to some folks and kind of, we're going to have our planning retreat here in a few weeks. That's we're going to nail down the 26 schedule because we've got novels coming out now. We've got kids books, and it's a real balancing act. So, you know, I think the way we've done the growth has been smart. We didn't try to do 10 million things all at once in one shot. You know, it was anthologies. The first 2 years was anthologies, period, dot, end of statement. And here we are now. I mean, 53 published so far. And it was cool. You know what was cool about the second Wyrd Warfare one was that was number 50.
Nice.
So that's like, a bunch of us all used to be comic book guys, right? So, you know, you had that issue number 50, and that was always a big deal. So it was like, yeah.
Man, you guys are turning them out. I didn't realize you had that many anthologies out.
Yeah, if you go to the Substack, you can see what the open call schedule is, and it's been a drumbeat.
Yeah.
So, you know, yeah, and we do a lot of guest editors too. You know, try to lighten load somewhat. You know, so we'll see what happens, but. And we're just trying to see what works, you know, theme wise. We're all over the map. I mean, who'd have thunk it that books that are a lot about cats were going to do friggin' well? I mean, not me. I mean, but apparently somebody's buying them. I mean, it ain't me, but somebody is.
There's a big cat market out there. I mean, they kind of
yeah, we noticed.
They got a huge slice of the internet.
So we did that noir. That's. And here's the other one too. There's going to probably be another Space Marines anthology that we'll do.
Cool.
There's going to be another one. I almost guarantee that because the last one did really well and it was really good. The stories in that one were great. So you know, and like I said, some other military theme one like you know Pogue 1 is fun. For the most part, it's funny. It's a lot darkly funny in a lot of cases.
Mm-hmm.
My wife put a story. Her story finishes out that book actually, and she decided that the experience of out processing through CIF, that the consolidated issue facility where Army people get all their gear and shit that they have to turn in, that was so much like reading Kafka that she basically turned Kafka into a story about trying to just out process a friggin' base. And it is the darkest, funniest, one of the damn funniest things I've ever read, and horrifying. It's horrifying in its own way too. Like in the way like Brazil was kind of horrifying, but it's like holy crap. Speaking of nightmares.
Yeah, man. Well, yeah, I need to go put my kids to bed, but this was awesome. I'm sorry I messed up the ending soon thing so many times. Streamlabs has been kicking my butt today, but yeah, man, this was great, and hopefully I'll see you again another time, Chris. And Jesse, I'll see you next week, man.
Yeah. We'll see you guys. Take care.
Yeah.
You too. See you.
Yeah, take care.